everyone, welcome to the third devlog for my survival game called Magnite. This devlog is all about getting a crafting system set up, which will allow the players to craft the items that they harvest into the world into useful pieces of equipment. But before we get started, there are a few things I would like to show you. First of all, data from the inventory is now being serialized into binary, just like everything else, so that we can keep the items in our hotbar in between game sessions. Speaking of the save and load system, after the last devlog, I found some faults with the way I was handling the data of various objects in the world, such as trees. And this resulted in some cases where you would chop down a tree and then if you were to quit the game and then later load back in, the tree would still be there. So I had to do a large rework of the save load system, and it was about a full day's worth of work to get it working. And the fix ended up only being about 7 lines of code. The next thing that I did was made this watering can. So as you can see here, I've been preparing this field of wheat, and you can see that if I come through with my watering can, the soil will go a bit darker and some water will come out the can. The reason I did this was because my first goal with this crafting system is to make it so that you can craft this watering can out of the rocks that you pick up in the world. There were also some other minor changes that I made to various parts of the game, such as a rework of how objects are placed into their sorting layer, as well as adding a few sound effects into the various objects in the world, as heard here. But anyway, let's get to work on this inventory system. So the first step for me was getting some very simple crafting UI for the player to interact with. Now for me, UI design has always been a little bit of a struggle because I often struggle to get things to look good. However, after a little bit of inspiration from Stardew Valley's crafting interface, I was able to get a somewhat good looking result going. The next step was to create a script that would handle the actual crafting. And this was actually, for once, really straightforward. First, we just need to tell the script how much of each item and what items are needed to craft a new item or piece of equipment. And then once we hit the button to craft, then we will just loop through the inventory to make sure that the requirements are met. And if they are, then those items will be removed from the inventory and the new equipment pieces will be placed into the inventory. So the next thing I would like to discuss in a little bit more detail is where I'm going to be going with this project. After the first devlog in this series, I kind of realized that I didn't give a massively in-depth explanation about my plans for this game. So that's what I would like to do now. So if you saw the first devlog, then you'll probably know that the game's name is Magnite, and it's a 2D survival game focused on exploration, crafting, fighting, and gathering. My plan is to release some sort of early access version of this game and continue to push updates from there. In terms of features, I mentioned in Devlog 1 that there are going to be NPCs in this game which you can trade with for items and also challenge in tournaments taking place in the game's stadium. However, over the last few days I've been realizing that the system doesn't really make sense in a way, since you are trading with these NPCs and selling and buying items from them, and then suddenly you're fighting them in a large arena. So the solution that I've been thinking of is to keep the tournaments, but instead have them against various monsters or even bosses from the game. This will allow me to create NPCs with a little more personality, since these NPCs won't be enemies, rather characters that can help you as you play the game. The solution to this problem is not final yet, and if you have any other ideas or suggestions about how I can go about doing tournaments, then please let me know, as I'd really love to hear your ideas. The next idea that I have for this game, which I haven't said anything about, is almost a dungeon crawler aspect of the game where you travel through procedurally generated caves fighting monsters, kind of similar to the mines in Stardew Valley, where the challenge, in my opinion at least, is to see how many levels down you can get. The last thing that I would like to briefly mention and speak about is the YouTube channel, because we hit 100 subscribers the other day, which I think is amazing, and to be honest, it felt like just the other day that we were reaching 50 subscribers, so it's pretty crazy that we're already at 100 and still growing. So I would just like to say thank you to everyone who has supported the videos so far, whether it be by liking, subscribing, or leaving a comment. Also, one more exciting announcement is that I now have a Discord server. So if you want to come chat or just see some progress updates on Magnite, then I'll have a link down in the description. now let's get back to development. Okay guys, so as you could probably see from that time lapse, I've been making some good progress on the new crafting system. And to my surprise, it actually went pretty well. We didn't run into any major issues along the way, and I was able to get everything working pretty quickly. So as you can see now, if I go ahead and I tap on E, we can see we get this brand new crafting interface. Currently the only thing in here is this watering can, and if I go ahead and hover over it, we see on the right, it tells us how much of what items we need to make this watering can. So as you can see, it's 10 stone, which I have, and if I go ahead and click on this, we can see we get this watering can in our inventory and we lose 10 of the rocks, which I think is really cool. So as I said, this didn't take nearly as long as I thought it would, and I still have a few days left to record this episode. So I think I'm just going to go full on time-lapse mode and work on making some brand new crafting recipes for this new crafting system. So it's a few days later, and since then I've been making good progress on adding this new item to the game. As you can see, if I go ahead and bring up my crafting menu now, we now have a windmill, which is currently just available for 5 wood. So if I go ahead and click this, we see we get this new windmill into our inventory, and I can go ahead and place this down using the building system. Now making the crafting for this mill was not difficult at all and only took about 5 minutes. What took me quite a while though was actually getting the mill's functionality working, which I'll show in a minute, as well as I also ended up reworking how buildings are placed in the world, because the way I was doing it before was really scuffed and wasn't very future-proof. So what this mill actually does is it has the ability to turn this wheat into flour. If I go ahead and click on it, we see we get this interface that comes up, and I can pop our wheat into the top slot here. This wheat will then slowly get turned into flour, which will output in this bottom slot, as you can see there. So as you can see, all of the wheat has been milled into some flour, and if I go ahead and click on this flour, I can put it into my inventory. So I'm really happy with how this is coming on, and I think this is a really cool feature to the game. So over the next week or so, I'm going to be working on adding some brand new crafting recipes such as a furnace, and the topic of the next devlog will be getting some basic NPCs going in the game, which you could sell and buy your items to. So I'm really happy with how this is going, and if you enjoyed this devlog, please consider subscribing and also joining the Discord server, because that's where I'll be sharing updates on the game. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.